Scary times for entrepreneurs means something different than it does for other people. And that was by choice because every entrepreneur, to become an entrepreneur, makes two fundamental decisions early in your life, or certainly early to become an entrepreneur. The first thing is you make a decision that you're going to rely strictly on yourself
Mm.
and your efforts of your company to produce your income, where other people have jobs where someone else provides them with their income. So first of all, entrepreneurs have put themselves in that situation. And when you first do that, that's very, very scary. I can remember my first years as an entrepreneur, and it's scary because
Mhm.
you only get 30 days to get up to break even, and no one's going to lend you money, or you can't get really loans for a new business at that stage. So that's a scary thing. And the second thing is you've made a decision that no one's going to give you any opportunity unless you first create value for them.
Mhm.
So right after the bat, you have already anybody who's an entrepreneur, you've already experienced scary times in your life that most people actually don't. And the other things, there's been ups and downs in almost everybody's market, in everybody's industry, certainly in everybody's business. You've had up quarters, down quarters, up months, down months,
Mhm.
and you've had up years and down years. One thing I think is really useful right now for every entrepreneur to go back and identify the five biggest scary times they've already had as an entrepreneur, and to say, to kind of just do it on a sheet of paper, down one side of the paper, write down the five
Mhm.
scariest times you've already had as an entrepreneur, and kind of put a date next to it. I mean, so in your mind, you can go back to a particular date and then say, what was the biggest lesson that came out of that scary times? How did I get better as a result of experiencing that scary times, going through a period of learning?
Mhm.
Did I develop any great skills? Did I develop any great new opportunities? Did I suddenly see a whole new way of approaching the market and my business as a result of that scary times? And the reason is that nobody's at zero in relationship to scary times. And I would say most entrepreneurs who are successful entrepreneurs are already at an 80 or 90% level of knowing how to deal with scary times. So that's the first thing that I would say.
Love that.
And the other thing is that what I've noticed about entrepreneurs, they're the first people to rebound from scary times. Of the entire population, the people you will see going the other direction the quickest, everybody gets hit by it. It's sort of a shock wave, but the first people to respond and to start going in a positive direction are always the entrepreneurial class generally. And the reason is because you've had to do that your entire entrepreneurial career. If you had a bad month, nobody else cared. If you had a bad quarter, nobody cared. I mean, you have friends, you have staff, you have people who are close to you, but the general public doesn't care. Well, I've got this great line, present, positive, and productive. I'm giving little strategies on how I'm staying personally confident during this period of time, and how I try to, coach and guide other people to be very, very confident, because confidence is the number one skill that you need during uncertain times. These are uncertain times. But there is a kind of formula that I've adapted, and this comes from previous scary times in my life because I've been through 6 or 7 since I've been an entrepreneur. And so the big thing is I think in terms of 24-hour days, and so it's just about today. And today, I want to be completely present with what's actually going on today. And I want to be totally positive. So all my interactions with everybody during the day, I want them to be very positive. In other words, they feel better for the time that they've been with me. And number three, that I'm productive, that things get done today, and if I measure at the end of the day, I was here this morning, but I'm further ahead in the evening. So just remember these three things. Be present, just live within today, be present, be positive in all of your interactions with everybody else. And the third thing is be productive. Get something measurably done, actually have achievements. And that's the best way that I can think of operating during each day of the scary times. And then at the end of that, we'll be into a new normal times. Won't be the old normal times, it'll be a new normal times as a result of all the progress we've made day by day during the scary times. Here's where you start with communication during scary times, and that is make sure your head's in the right place. In other words, you want to create value, and make sure your heart's in the right place, that you want people to get better as a result of what you're giving to them. And then just kind of open your mouth and talk, and you don't worry about how it's coming across. They'll pick up on your intention that you want to be useful, and they will pick up on your emotion, and that is you really, really want what you're creating for them to be of use to them so they can be more useful. And if you just get the intentionality right up front and your mindset right up front, it'll come across great. Entrepreneurs are very, very resilient. That's the nature. It's nature of, the definition, according to the French word entrepreneur, means to take resources from a lower level of productivity to a higher level of productivity. Well, a lot of things have gone to very low level of productivity during this time. So you as an entrepreneur, how do you take resources? What kind of resources? Any kind of resource. Mm-hmm. Ideas, solutions, products, services. You have to rethink them. So that's how I would approach it. I mean, just as a general description, and this is going to entrepreneurs everywhere. Mm-hmm. And strategic coach entrepreneurs who are in the strategic coach program, they have a lot of thinking tools that they can use for themselves, they can use for their family, they can use for their team, and then they can go out and talk to their existing clients and customers. They can go and talk to other entrepreneurs and show them how to think. Anything that you do to make someone else clearer about the situation, anything you do to make them more confident about the situation, and everything that you do to make people more capable during this period of time mm-hmm. will be rewarded 10 times after we come out of this period.
That's really my sense of it too, Dan. There's an incredible opportunity to strengthen relationships, to strengthen your structures in your company, your technology, all the new capabilities. I love, love, love the idea of all the projects that you have not had time to do, because time is the one thing that most of us, if we don't even this week, pretty soon we're going to have more time to do things, more time with our families, more time for perhaps health and exercise. Keep yourself healthy is super important right now.
The other thing is 5 ideas that you've had kind of on your back burner during normal times, if we can call them normal times, and sort of make a list of 5 ideas that you've had that you would do sometime in the future, but that since you were making money doing things normally, you didn't have to do these things. Well, you're not necessarily making money normally right now. So pick out 5 that you're going to test now, and you're actually going to go out and talk to people about. And a drawing on a napkin is good enough for presentation materials. You don't have to do, you don't have to get these packaged for a Hollywood presentation here. You can just talk to people about an idea.
You yourself have learned some things about how important cash flow and cash confidence is. Can you just talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I think the problem with cash flow during a period like that is that you're used to selling
Mm.
I'll use the word commodity. In other words, you've got a product, you've got a service, and you've kind of packaged this in a particular way that you present in a particular way. And what gives you confidence in presenting this is that during normal times, there's actually a need for this. And what happens when scary times comes along, people reprioritize what they're going to spend on money while things are bad, and you may not make the list. What you're selling may not make their list. And I think this discourages entrepreneurs. They say, well, I've got nothing to sell. And I did a test during the 08-09 downturn to prove a point, and it's completely voluntary, but I said, how many of you in the room, and my clients who I coach are very successful financially, their businesses are very successful, and I said, how many of you are okay with cash for the next 90 days, that the normal selling process, if it's suspended and you don't have cash flow from the normal sales process, are you okay? You're okay. I mean, you've got reserves, you've got a foundation, and things are good. And half the room, their hands went up. There were probably more, but half of them, they wanted to hear what I had to say. And I said, what I'd like you to do is pick out your top 20 important people in the marketplace. So it could be a customer, it could be a client, depending upon your business. People have different names for who the check writers are, or they could be your big centers of influence, or they could be, they could be someone who's crucial to your normal cash flow process. And the thing you have to realize right up front is they're going through scary times too.
Right.
And they are drawing in, and they are faced with the same problem that you're experiencing yourself, that their normal way of doing business is not generating cash flow the way they want to it. And therefore, so they're like you. So everybody's in the same situation. So my question is, who's going to be the first person to depart from what everybody's doing? Well, you can be the person to depart. And you say, I just like to, during this time, to have a conversation with you about how you're looking at the future. And I don't have anything I'm trying to sell here. I just want to get a feel for how everyone who is important in my future is actually thinking about their future.
Right.
And I said, you got to be pure about this. One is that you're the host. And the other thing is you have a goal in every conversation to get through the entire conversation where you don't talk about yourself, you don't talk about your company, you don't talk about your product, you don't talk about your service. You just keep them asking questions about their future. And say, on the other side, when you come out of this, what's a really big goal that you already have that you're probably going to have to make up for lost ground when you come out? So what were 2 or 3 things that once we get the all clear sign, from government officials and, and everybody that it's business, back to business again, what would be the first 3 or 4 things that you would do that would be more important than they've ever been in the past? These things are more important. And just have a conversation. And when you get back, follow up with a 1-page letter, doing an outline of everything that you got from the meeting. If you have a good memory, you can jot them down and ask them, can we record this? And you'll get a copy of the recording. So here I did it. And, I had about 400 or 500 that I coached on a quarterly basis. And I think maybe about 50 of them actually did it. They followed through. And for those who actually had the experience and came back and talked to me, They said, I've never had a better cash flow quarter in my life.
Wow.
And and I said, but you didn't sell anything. They said, no, I didn't sell anything. But I sold them on the fact that they had a bigger future than they thought they did. And this is what we're all, as entrepreneurs, going to sell during this period. We're going back to the people who are important to our future, and we're going to sell them on the fact that they have a better future than they're feeling right now.
Yes.
And this is the thing that they need most right
Mhm.
now, and you're the one that provided it.
Wow, that gives me goosebumps actually. And because
Gives
that
me,
is,
gives me goosebumps. First time I've said it.
yeah, no, that's like, that's, mm. Because, yeah, and people need a bigger future right now, and we will have one. Human race does not, hasn't survived for this long without actually keeping striving and problem solving and getting through really, really challenging situations. So we want to grow. People want to grow. They want to have a bigger future, but they're just really uncertain about how to do that right
And it was really, really interesting. Normal mean, in my mind, sort of mean that you're going back to the way things were. And then there was a discussion. People agreed that things had really changed, had already changed during the period of the first year of the pandemic and lockdowns, and that there was still more change ahead. And a lot of this had to do with the economy because in virtually every country, the economy had lost ground, and it had enormous negative impact on some of the entrepreneurs because of their particular industries, and in others they had shot way ahead. Financial really shot ahead. Residential real estate really shot ahead. And so I said, well, it's interesting. And I said, you've all been through other things like this, '07 to '09, the subprime meltdown in the United States. That was a huge disruption. But I said, I want you to entertain something, and that is, what if the next 25 years, starting right now, is just nonstop disruption after disruption after disruption, because that's what I'm reading is going to happen. And you can see it happening. And American politics is really about how fast this is going to happen, but the US is going to come back essentially and work on itself now, and there was a lot of industries that were more or less abandoned in the United States because it was easier to ship the cost of manufacturing and the jobs over to other seas, and that's all over now. And it's a unique period in human history, and it's now over, but it's been kind of crumbling over the last 20, 30 years. 30 years it's been since the Soviets collapsed. And so now, and COVID speeded up the process of the collapse because it interrupted all the supply chains out in the world. And not only the United States, but other countries are coming to the conclusion, anything that's crucial to your economy, you got to have the supply chains in your country. The manufacturing has to be in your country. So more and more it becomes the United States, Canada, and Mexico as a single economic unit. Be thankful you're an entrepreneur, because if you were working for a large corporation, you just have zero job security right now, because all the corporations have to, have to shift. And, that notion of employment security is a thing of the past. There's no employment security. Even CEOs, there's no
now.
employment security.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything in the world is changing right now. Every industry is shifting. Every business is shifting. And I said, if this settles down in 25 years, I'd be surprised.
Right.
So just use COVID as an example of what you have to get used to.
And that's a big thought for a lot of people, because if your business got started in the last 25 to 30 years, you were used to a certain type of reality. And then you may think, okay, I had to get through this lockdown period. Now I can kind of go back to some of the things I'm familiar with. And what you're saying is, don't get comfortable, don't get used to that. It's going to be changing for a long time forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, it's created so many problems. We just did a podcast on friction. There's so much friction in the world right now. That's entrepreneurial opportunity.
Okay, so Dan, tell me more about that, because, and I do think entrepreneurs are uniquely positioned to, well, you actually used this term in our last podcast too, alert, curious, responsive, and resourceful. But I'm super intrigued. How does this work?
Well, one of the big things, people lose confidence when they lose their future. Okay, if you have a future that's predictable, you can have growing capability and confidence, because it seems like all business is a game that you can get better and better at playing. But if they're changing the rules of the game all the time, you don't have that same capability and confidence. And so everybody outside, so if you're an entrepreneur, you have to realize that everybody who is not another entrepreneur, and some of them that are, but everybody who's not an entrepreneur out in the world is going to be going through a high level of anxiety and worry, and they don't have their own thinking ability to actually create a new future for themselves. So I would say is that the main business for entrepreneurs over the next 25 years is to continually help other people create a new future for their particular specialty, for their particular business, and constantly reinforce them, and because in Strategic Coach, entrepreneurs do this every 90 days, and I've got clients who've been doing this every 90 days for 30 years. And so they know how to adjust, they're very flexible, they're very, very alert. And I said, so you're kind of taken care of. I mean, you have to spend time every day, adjusting yourself and expanding your capabilities. But you're kind of okay. It's the world outside of the entrepreneurial world where things are dire, things are fraught with dangers, and they're real dangers. I mean, these are not imagined dangers. These are real dangers. Here's a thought for you today. Our biggest breakthroughs as entrepreneurs come from things that don't work, okay? And the thinking tool here that we have, the Strategic Coach, which proves the point, is the strategy circles. So you have a goal for something that's bigger and better, and you put numbers to that so you can measure the bigger, the better. You put events to it so you know when you've done it or you haven't done it, and you put a deadline to it. Okay, and that's a terrific ability to be able to see the future and visualize it. Then something else kicks in. Immediately your mind is filled with obstacles that right now would prevent you from getting to that goal. So in fact, the obstacles that you get from a bigger and better goal are unique obstacles. You didn't see these obstacles before you actually told yourself what the bigger and better result is going to be in the future. And then if you're willing to take each of the obstacles and say, inside of this obstacle is actually my new capability, and that new capability will take the form of a decision that you're going to make, that you're going to leave something behind, or it could be a communication, something has to be communicated, or it's an action, and especially action with teamwork, where it's actually someone else's ability that's necessary to actually take you to the goal. But as you can see in the strategy circle, and this is the very, very first thinking process that we ever had in Strategic Coach, is all those things which seem to oppose our goals are actually the raw material for achieving our goals. So the biggest breakthrough for entrepreneurs right off the bat, once you've set a bigger and better goal, are the things that don't work right in the present that you have to transform into new capabilities, new teamwork, new resources. If you're in a position and you have a choice between a new capability or more cash, always take the new capability. And just to go through and explain why that's so important, because with a new capability, multiplying the capabilities that you already have, you're going to create more cash. But if you get more cash, it may not create a new capability. And people say, yeah, but I need the cash. And I said, well, then you're not in a position to make the choice. But if you are in a position and you have total cash confidence and you don't need the cash, always go for the capability. And so, you know, in certain areas at Strategic Coach, we get an offer of acquiring a capability outside. There's a choice between the capability and the cash. We always take the capability because we have a lot of capabilities and we have cash confidence. So here's a thought for you. One of your biggest goals as an entrepreneur should be develop cash confidence, so you have the freedom when a new capability comes available to you. The cash doesn't matter right now because the cash will be much bigger later on. So I'm just telling you, this is a phenomenal jump for an entrepreneur where cash doesn't really matter in the short run, and you can fully take advantage of a new capability, and that will create much more cash in the future. So when faced with a choice of cash or capability, always choose the capability.